What happens when early childhood trauma collides with the emotionally complex, highly charged experiences of adult life? It sounds like a simple question, but because so many of us have spent decades moving on, pushing forward, burying those early experiences, answering it honestly can feel confronting, even threatening to the stability we've worked so hard to build. We know that early trauma doesn't just live in memory. It's stored in the nervous system, in the cells of the body. And we know that triggers don't just remind us of the past. They shake the foundations we've built to keep it all contained. We see the aftermath everywhere. Families fractured, relationships shattered, the visible fallout from a person's response to trauma, whether it stems from adult experiences, like combat, or the hidden wounds of childhood that resurface as addiction, self-sabotage, or destructive patterns. So why do we still resist openly talking about the experiences that shape so many painful outcomes? There would be countless answers to that question, countless opinions too, but that's not why we're here. Following on from the last video, I want to raise something that's uncomfortable, and for many, deeply triggering. But it's necessary. It deserves a voice. So I'll ask it again. What happens when early childhood trauma meets adult life at its most complex and emotionally charged? So take a deep breath in as we step through the door. Let's go there.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening all, it's Bear here. And in today's video, I'm still following on in an area that, quite frankly, I know the majority of people really don't want to explore, especially in the world of adoption and foster care, all of us who have lived through it. It is not a place that we're comfortable going because it's pushing us to remind us of where we came from. And like in the little video short, we've spent so many years of our life trying to move past it, trying to change its influence and trying to push it out of the picture that is our life. But as I've said over the last few videos, in speaking with the children of adoptees and looking at generational trauma and understanding epigenetics and interoception and memory and all of this stuff that plays together, it is a place, as uncomfortable as it is, we really need to explore and we really need to go. I know it pushes buttons and I know it makes people uncomfortable, but trust me, it is worth taking the time to explore. It is worth taking the time to at least sit quietly and pose yourself some questions. It is worth the time to broaden your understanding of just how much your and our beginnings shaped our lives, especially when it comes to having our own children, our relationships, and the families that we create, and the way we want to move through life and put our past behind us.
When trauma is experienced in those early developmental years, it doesn't just leave a memory. It shapes the very architecture of who we become. The ACE studies have shown us the long-term outcomes, mapped across decades. But beyond the data, there's a deeper, more human truth. When trauma shapes a developing nervous system, it alters something fundamental. It changes the premise of why we are alive. We shift from living a life to surviving a life. And when you really step back and sit with that realization, so much starts to make sense. It becomes clearer why those who grew up carrying early trauma so often move through the world from a completely different set of rules. Life isn't about open exploration and discovery anymore. It's about how to survive and navigate. In those critical years, when connection and curiosity should be taking root, something else grows instead. We develop strategies over play, defenses over connection, vigilance over exploration, and the known, the familiar, the predictable, however painful, becomes our highest priority. That rewiring doesn't just fade with age. It follows us, quietly, into every room, every relationship, every charged adult moment. A subtle witness, whispering within every moment of our lives.
As difficult as it is to start to look at the impact of our beginnings and how they have shaped our lives and shaped the trajectory of our choices and created and embedded a survival state and a conditioning. As much as society would like nothing more than for us to put that to rest, bury it in the background, and never raise it again. When you hit those moments in your life where things start to hit home, like in the little video short, where you realize that, living a life of exploration was taken from us, and we were put into a position where we were trying to navigate and survive a life. That realization and that understanding gives you, as confronting as it is, gives you an empowerment and the ability to be able to go, no, I know I need to change. I own my part of the equation and I know I need to change, but I need to value myself too, and I need help and support to be able to. So I need to learn how to articulate what changed within me and how my beginnings altered how I perceive things, how I interact, how my nervous system responds, what I've inherited epigenetically, the memories that are carried within me, and the interoception, my felt sense, and how it relates to all of my interactions. That shadow of my past that whispers in my ear. When I learn to be able to articulate that to those that are really close to me, it helps open the door. But the first step is we need to value it. And sadly, so many of us don't.
And perhaps nowhere is that more painfully clear than in the experience of infant and early childhood removal. This isn't a single event. It's a sequence of traumatic experiences that an infant or young child is suddenly forced to navigate and somehow make sense of. From the removal itself to being placed with strangers, it's a cascade, one overwhelming moment after another, the kind of experiences that, in any other context, we wouldn't hesitate to call highly traumatic. But because it's labeled as a governmental procedure, a process, a case file moving through the system, it gets dismissed, far more easily than it should. And that dismissal doesn't just stay in the past. It follows quietly into every room, every relationship, every charged adult moment. Which brings us directly to the conversation we've been building across the last few videos. What changes when an adoptee, or someone who has experienced foster care, has their own biological children? What does it bring up? What stirs beneath the surface during childbirth? And in that very first moment you hold your newborn child. Because for a parent whose own earliest story began with separation, that moment isn't just a beginning for the baby. It can be a profound, emotionally complex reckoning. Understanding what is rising within you may be one of the most helpful things you can ever do.
One of the most challenging moments in any person's life is the realization that our choices and actions have impacted those we care about. In having the courage to go to this place when you come from the world of adoption, the world of foster care, is a lot more necessary than most people will ever value or realize. Because trust me, what we have been through, we may have undervalued it or may have dismissed it far too easily. But the impact of our removal and placement is getting passed on generationally. And it does affect the children we bring into this world and the families we create and the lives that we live through the interactions we have with those around us that we care about and that care about us. It is a very difficult place to be and a very difficult place to go, but it is so necessary to gain the understanding of this to be able to articulate to those around us so that we can move our nervous system past survival and into a place where we can create meaningful change. But to do that, we have to have the courage and be open enough to go there in the first place. This is not about turning us into we are broken people and unrepairable, which is a common side effect of these explorations in the world of adoption and foster care. It's about going and understanding that, hey, we had no choice. We didn't participate in any of the decisions that created our beginnings, but we want to participate in the decisions that shape our future. And for that to happen, we need to be able to go there within ourselves and value the impact our removal and placement had on the way we view the world, the way we connect and interpret the world, and how we are being emotionally present for our families and with those that are closest to us. And to do that, to take that journey, to take those steps, we first need to have the courage to go there ourselves and confront ourselves with the realizations that our past did change us. As obvious as a statement as that is, trust me, in the world of adoption and foster care and the conversations I've had over decades, forums and groups and with other adoptees, the conversations that arise when you start to point this stuff out and how defensive people get. I get it. I understand it. But as I've been reminded constantly with the interactions I have with children of adoptees that I personally know, it gets passed on. And as hard as it is for me to make these videos and to try to have them valued or make sense, I'm driven to keep on doing it because of those interactions. And the only way we can get there to a place where we have the ability to create actual change and actual healing is we have to have the courage to understand that what shaped our beginnings not only gets passed on epigenetically to the following generations when we have children, but also shapes how emotionally available we are across the board with those we are raising in our family, our own children, and the relationships that we build.
And as disturbing as all of this might be to sit with, we still need to find the courage to openly explore where it leads. Not to simply dismiss it, not to shut the conversation down. Because this isn't about tearing your beliefs apart, it's about taking steps, real, tangible steps, to heal connection with the people closest to you, your family, your children. For many of you watching, you've already been through those experiences. You've had your children. You've navigated everything as best you could with the tools you had at the time. And I want to be very clear. This is not an accusation. You haven't done anything wrong. But hindsight, paired with awareness and understanding, can open doors. Doors to improved connection, deeper relationships, even when your children are now adults. It's not too late. Healing doesn't ask you to rewrite the past. It just asks you to see it with clearer eyes and to take one small step closer to the ones you love.
I really want to thank you guys for your patience and your understanding around the difficulty these videos, not only for watching them and the impact on those that have lived through this sort of stuff, but also I hope in your understanding of the difficulty in making them. I have literally recorded hours and hours of footage that just gets deleted because it gets so emotionally messy in the explanation. And that's where I hope this new little format in these few videos where I'm doing little animations through adds some degree of clarity. Because one of the things that I find with this, one, I want to do justice to those that are in the back of my mind whilst making that, do justice to their own experiences. But I also want to move past, which happens so often when we start to have these conversations, where those that have gone through the most are also the ones that get accused the most of doing the most wrong or being at most to blame. And trust me, in the world that is adoption and foster care, that we are seen as less than in so many formats, and I do not want that to ever come across in my videos. All I'm trying to do is to open up the ability to articulate these experiences, their impacts, so that we can have the conversations that are so desperately needed. But I really hope you guys understand where I'm coming from with this. And as always, I love you guys' comments and support for the channel. Please be mindful, please be safe, please be respectful, and I'll see you all next time.